allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. As we prepare to embark on the business of the county tonight, please bless us, Lord, as we deliberate, help us make wise decisions, and may we keep in our thoughts and prayers Terre Haute Police Officer Sean Pitts, who was laid to rest today. Like so many other public safety personnel that give their lives day in, day out for us here in our county, may we think of him and his family during this difficult time and appreciate the sacrifice that he has made for the state of Indiana. And with Mother's Day coming up this Sunday, may we keep our mothers in our thoughts and prayers. Think of some of the mothers of the past, like Sojourner Truth, Mother Teresa, or maybe simply something as simple as Mother Earth. Keep our mothers in your hearts and prayers, and bless them, and may we enjoy them as we prepare to celebrate Mother's Day on Sunday. We ask these favors in the name of your Son, Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you, Councilman Tanzarite. You're welcome. Next are petitions, communications, and miscellaneous matters. Mr. Nolan.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to reappoint John Brady and Raphael Morton to Early Intervention Board, along with Mark Rich and Cobb.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Are there any other nominations at this time? Hearing none, I believe I did hear a second to that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. John Ferretti and Raphael Morton are reappointed to the Early Intervention Board, and Mark Root is reappointed to the MACOG Policy Board. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the April 10th, 2018 public hearing?
So moved.
Here's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes from the April 10th, 2018 meeting are approved. Report from the county auditor.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Report from county commissioners. No report. Report from any council special committee. No report. Hearing none. Next on the agenda are first readings. Clerk, will you please read bill number 3718?
In order to vacate a public way of place located wholly within the unincorporated portion of St. Joseph County, to wit, petitioners Patrick and Kathleen Kowalski and Alex Kowalski Jr.
Bill number 3718 is assigned to the Land Use Planning Committee. That concludes first readings for this evening. Next on the agenda are resolutions. Clerk, will you please read bill number 3518?
3518, a resolution of the County Council of St. Joseph County, Indiana, approving an agreement extending the St. Joseph County Housing Consortium and authorizing the execution thereof. Petitioner, City of South Bend.
Petitioner? Please state your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Yes, my name is Lori Timmer. I'm with the City of South Bend's Department of Community Investment with offices on the 14th floor of the County City Building. I also serve as staff to the St. Joseph County Housing Consortium. This resolution would authorize President Castoni to execute documents to renew the St. Joseph County Housing Consortium under an interlocal agreement among the 3 jurisdictions of St. Joseph County, the City of South Bend, and the City of Mishawaka. The St. Joseph County Housing Consortium was established in 1991 as a means to receive federal home program dollars from HUD. It's structured so that each jurisdiction provides 2 members to the consortium, and as I stated, Department of Community Investments employees serve as staff to the consortium. The typical annual allocation of home dollars from HUD is $750,000. This year, we just found out we got a bump and we'll be receiving $1,030,000. This money is intended to go to housing assistance to low to moderate income households via programs such as acquisition rehab of existing properties, new construction of homes, and rental assistance. Past projects that have benefited from these funds include Shamrock Estates senior housing in North Liberty, upgrades to Prairie Village Apartments in New Carlisle, Lakeville School Senior Apartments rehab, as well as numerous owner-occupied rehabs throughout the county. The current agreement expires December 31st, 2018, and this resolution would extend the interlocal agreement for another 3 years through December 31st, 2021. And I respectfully request your favorable consideration of this resolution.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner from council? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing. On Bill 3518, does anyone wish to address the council in favor of 3518? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to 3518? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on the bill. Do I hear a motion? Motion to pass bill number 3518 was made by Councilman Nolan and seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further council discussion on this bill? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Krasinski,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Mr. Toland,
Yes.
Mr. Katanzari,
Yes.
Mr. McHale,
Aye.
Mr. Root,
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 3518 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Clerk, will you please read the next bill, bill number 3618?
Resolution of the St. Joseph County Council authorizing approval of an interlocal agreement between the St. Joseph County and the City of South Bend regarding special law enforcement units. Petitioner, St. Joseph County Prosecutor.
Good evening, Ken Cotter, Prosecutor, St. Joseph County, 10th floor, County City Building. Members of the council, this interlocal agreement allows us to fund 3 officers or 3 investigators with the homicide unit, special victims unit, and the drug investigations unit. It is paid for by the City of South Bend. They have already approved that. It covers not only their salary but all the fringe benefits as well as a vehicle and their ability to be able to properly investigate these cases. As South Bend has advised me, at this time with law enforcement officers, they are cash rich and people poor, and we all, the mayor's office, the City of South Bend Police Department, and my office, along with the consultation with the sheriff and the chief of Mishawaka Police, determined that this was the best course of action to ensure that those cases are properly investigated.
Thank you. Any questions from council, from the prosecutor? Thank you. Hearing none, we'll now open the public hearing on bill number 3618. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on 3618. Do I hear a motion?
Motion approved.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Motion to pass bill number 3618 was made by Councilman McCahill. It was seconded by Councilman Nolan. Any further comments on this bill? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll on 3618?
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Mr. Toland,
Yes.
Mr. Katanzari,
Yes.
Mr. McHale,
Yes.
Mr. Root,
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski,
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 3618 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Next are salary amendments. Clerk, will you please read bill number 2818?
An ordinance amending ordinance 6017, the same being an ordinance establishing salaries and fixing the number of employees of St. Joseph County for the year 2018. County Auditor.
Ms. Hess, committee report, please.
Mr. President, bill number 2818 comes to the full council with favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Hand.
Mike Hammond, St. Joe County Auditor with offices on the second floor. Bills 2818, 2918, and 3018 all go together. As you're aware, that our budget director, Kathy Sobecki, is retiring. We are not replacing her. We're asking some other folks to take up additional responsibilities, and in the course of that action, we're asking them to, we're agreeing to pay them a little bit extra. So Katie Bishop is the accounts payable clerk. She'll be taking over some additional responsibilities, and so she'll be getting a bump in pay. We're also going to do the same thing with our real estate clerk, Patty Henry. She's been basically, it's not a matter of her assuming more responsibilities. It's that she is a very highly valuable person. I don't want to lose her. so we're trying to give her an incentive to stay here. She, is always looking to, do better, so we want to make sure that we take care of her. And that's what Bill. So 2818 is regard to Patty Henry, the property tax clerk. 2918 has to do with Katie Bishop. The Bill 3018 has to do with folks who are going to be working part-time to assist John Murphy, my chief deputy. So for a while, just to ease the transition, Kathy Sebecki is going to be back for 1 day a week for a few hours, and then she'll work for a while and then probably no longer need her services. And then primarily during budget season, and then in anticipation of going forward with the ERP system, Mr. Murphy has talked to someone who's retired from the city of South Bend, who's agreed to come back on a part-time basis 1 day a week to assist him. Again, it's not going to be long-term. It's going to be short-term, not exactly how long, but we're going to pay this gentleman also on a part-time basis. So we're eliminating a position, bumping up the pay of 2 full-time workers, and then hiring 2 folks part-time. Bottom line is, I think something like $17,000 or $18,000 will end up coming back to the general fund. Next year, though, as I mentioned, I wanted to use $8,000 of that. So ultimately, what will end up happening is that it'll be a reduction in cost in the auditor's office of at a minimum of $11,000. So it'll save the county money with what we're doing.
Thank you. Any questions from council for Mr. Hammond? Hearing none, I'll open a public hearing on Bill 2818, 2918, and Bill 3018. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of either of these bills? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition of either of these bills, 2818, 2918, and 3018? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on all 3 bills. Do I hear a motion? Motion to pass bill number 2818, 2918, and 3018 was made by Councilman Nolan. It was seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further comments from any council member on either 3 of these bills?
Just thank you, Mr. Hammond, for your creativity.
Any other comments from council? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Lyon?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzarek?
Yes.
Mr. Cato?
Aye.
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 2818, 2918, and 3018 were all 3 passed by a vote of 8-0. Clerk, will you please read the next bill, bill number 3118.
An ordinance amending ordinance 6017, the same being an ordinance establishing salaries and fixing the number of employees in St. Johns County for the year 2018. Prosecutor.
Mr. McCahill, committee report, please, sir.
Mr. President, 3118 comes to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cotter?
Ken Cotter, prosecutor, 10th Floor County City Building. The auditor actually has already established a fund. All this ordinance is going to do is allow me then to hire those 3 people.
Any other questions for the petitioner from council? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing on bill number 3118. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition of the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on 3118. Do I hear a motion?
Motion for passage.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion to pass bill number 3118 was made by Councilman Tanzarek. It was seconded by Councilman McCahill. Any further council discussion on this bill? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Lyon?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzarek?
Yes.
Mr. Cato?
Aye.
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
The record show that bill number 3118 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Clerk, will you please read the next bill, bill number 3218?
An ordinance amending ordinance 6017, the same being ordinance establishing salaries and fixing the number of employees in St. Johns County for the 2018 Circuit Court.
Mr. McCahill, committee report, please, sir.
Mr. President, 3218 comes to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Lisa Plensner, Circuit Court Administrator with offices at 101 South Main Street. The bill before you, the Circuit Court is requesting permission to hire a part-time Title 4D assistant. The funding for this position would not be coming out of general funds, it would be out of the Title 4D incentive funds.
Thank you. Any questions, council, on Bill 3218? Thank you. We'll now open the public hearing on 3218. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of the bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on 3218. Do I hear a motion?
Motion approved.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion to pass bill number 3218 was made by Councilman McCahill. It was seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further council discussion? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Kinsright?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Aye.
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Julian?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
I was about to show that bill number 3218 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Clerk, will you please read the next bill, bill number 3418?
An ordinance amending ordinance 6017, the same being an ordinance establishing salaries and fixing the number of employees in St. Johns County for the 2018 public defender.
Mr. McCahill, committee report, please.
Mr. President, 3418 comes to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. Petitioner?
President, I don't see the chief public defender or his deputy here. I would make a motion to committee.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Bill number 3418 is returned to committee. Next is public hearing, public comment on fiscal matters. All financial issues were heard and discussed at our April 24th, 2018 committee meeting. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of any financial issue on tonight's agenda? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition on any financial issue on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, public comment is now closed. May I have a motion on bill number 2718? Motion to pass bill number 2718 was made by Councilman Nolan. It was seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further council discussion on 2718? Hearing none, Mr. Hannah, will you please take the roll?
Mr. McHale?
Aye.
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Julian?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsright?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 2718 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Clerk, will you please read bill number 3318 under miscellaneous?
3318 is the Scrivener's Error Budget Book 2018 Juvenile Justice Summary.
Mr. McCahill?
Mr. President, this comes to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Petitioner?
Cheryl Rush, Controller, Juvenile Justice Center, 1000 South Michigan. There was an error on the special deputy line. It was stated at 32,805, should have been 36,805. The budget total was correct, however.
Any questions from council? Thank you. We'll now open the public hearing on bill number 3318. Does anyone wish to address the council in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition of the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on 3318. Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a second? Motion to approve 3318 was made by Councilman Nolan. It was seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further comments on this bill? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Hess. Mr. Flynn.
Yes.
Mr. Tanzak.
Yes.
Mr. Cahill.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Record show that bill number 3318 was passed by a vote of 8-0. That concludes the public hearing this evening. Next on the agenda is unfinished business. Next is new business. Next item on the agenda is privilege of the floor, limited to 3 minutes on any item not on tonight's agenda. I do believe that we have, excuse me, ma'am, I do believe we have Jenny from the Humane Society and the gentleman who has an issue with the Humane Society. If you could come forward and, if you are present,
Mr. Senate.
and state your name and address for the record and sign in, please. And you have 3 minutes. I repeat, 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you.
My name is Laura Seneff. This is my husband Andrew Seneff. Our residence is 58870 Magnolia Road. And we are disputing the definition of the classification of our animal as a dangerous dog, as well as a controlled animal. The ordinance is unclear, and the information packet we received from Animal Control is not listed in the ordinance, and it references state ordinances inaccurately.
Also, there's no provisions for any kind of visitors. We are not technically residents of Indiana. We split our time between Arizona and Indiana. My job allows me to work remotely, so I work and live in both states. So that's why we're here today.
Okay, can you be a little bit more? I know you said the classification, you disagree with that. And
correct.
Yeah,
If we look at
that's good.
If we look at 9006, I believe is the actual ordinance number. We have two different classifications here for wild animals as well as controlled animals. The animal officer that came to my house claimed that my animal is considered a hybrid between a wolf and a dog, based off of the vaccination that we had from Arizona. However, our tags and everything else out of Arizona, mind you, clearly state otherwise. He is a German Shepherd mix. So that's where we're having a problem, as well as what you're asking for the what to do with a controlled or dangerous animal. For example, it's a little inhumane to keep an animal in a 6x6 cage all the time with a floor of concrete, not allowing it outside to run around and do what it's meant to do. Now, in your state law, it actually clearly defines what a hybrid is, and in this ordinance, it does not. So, is a hybrid every dog on this planet because it's a descendant of a wolf, therefore it shares both genes? Or is it a hybrid because 2 generations ago its mother or father was a wolf? And I do have that paperwork if you would like to see it as far as the licenses for my pets. I also would like to tell you that for the last 10 years I come back here every July, and for the last 4 years I have been bringing these 2 pets here to Roseland and the hotel that we stay at. So that not once have I been challenged or even had any issue with anybody letting me keep the animals in the hotel. I forget what hotel it is, but I'm sure she remembers.
Waterford Estates Lodge.
Okay, I guess at this point, unless you have anything else to add, I guess
I would actually like to add that the investigation that deemed him a dangerous animal was incomplete, and the animal control officer did not fully investigate the matter. They took the word of a witness, only the word, and the story from the witness changed. The witness itself changed from a husband or a wife to a husband, and there is no actual observation by the animal control officer, as well as we found damage to our dog that could not have been obtained in a dog fight in any way, shape, or form. It has some teeth in the very front that are damaged. Not its larger fangs, the teeth in the very front that would have been damaged after its fangs had it been coming into contact with something hard, going in a biting motion.
Which you have an exception in your ordinance about teasing, tormenting, abusing, or assaulting an animal. And that right there.
Is your implication that your dog was assaulted? Is that what you're...
That is correct. By either a broom or a bat, from what we are told.
Okay. As we all know, I should say, and I just need some input from my esteemed colleagues up here. We were hoping to take care of this matter at our committee meeting, and I felt that it was pretty serious after looking at the photos and just the whole gist of this subject matter. So, how do you want to proceed here? Would you like to hear from, asking everyone for input or anyone for comment? Do you want to hear from the Humane Society? I don't anticipate us coming to any kind of conclusion this evening. How do you want to proceed? Any That's why I'm asking. Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Jenny Carlson with the Humane Society, located at 2506 Grape Road, Mishawaka, Indiana. We are the animal control agency for St. Joseph County. Just to clear up a few kind of protocol procedures for the ordinance, when we do have individuals who have a complaint or disagree with a designation that has been made, such as a dangerous animal or a controlled animal permit, the owners of those animals would request a hearing from the Animal Control Commission, which the SNFs have done.
I'm sorry, what was your last comment? They have done
They
that?
have requested an appeal hearing from the
Okay.
Animal Control Commission,
Okay.
and that's usually your body of individuals who will hear cases such as this for their appeal of the dangerous dog designation and to apply for a controlled animal permit or to appeal their need to apply for a controlled animal permit. It generally does not come to the county council
And
as we are
just
here.
for clarification,
Mhm.
we received a call, and I disseminated that information
Sure.
to the council, as opposed to just saying, well, call Jenny.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
Yep.
please continue.
Yep, absolutely. So just to touch on a couple of the information here, just to clarify about the information about the wolf or wolf hybrid, the rabies vaccination, which is a state official certificate that is given when a rabies vaccination is given to a animal by a veterinarian, did list the male dog as a timber wolf, and also in the owner's Facebook post about the animals missing while they were running at large when the bite incident did take place, they did describe the animal as a 15-week-old wolf puppy hybrid. The animal control ordinance does define what a controlled animal permit or a controlled animal is, which is on page 5 of the ordinance, and non-domestic canines, including wolves, coyotes, wild dogs, and hybrids. Therefore, we did designate those animals as needing a controlled animal permit. That's when the process started for having to obtain these type of permits. And because the male dog did bite another dog while off his own property, and he was not provoked in that manner, and to our belief from the information that we did receive and during our investigation, that's why the male dog was deemed a dangerous animal on top of being a controlled animal.
Any other comments, ma'am?
No.
Okay, well, at this point, Mr. Nolan.
What is the current status of the appeal?
It's still waiting for a hearing date to be set by the Animal Control Commission.
In the meantime, until that happens,
The animals are at home.
they're at home, they're not anything going on.
Yes. Currently, that is the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any anticipation as far as timetable on this hearing?
Not that I don't set those dates. I've given that information to the Animal Control Commission. I've been trying to be in constant contact with them, but it's been hard getting a response.
Mr. Krasinski, do you have a question? Oh, okay, thank you. In looking at this certificate of vaccination from Arizona, Ms. Hess brought this to my attention. The breed says Timberwolf.
Yes. Yes.
The license says otherwise. So the incorrect vet documentation is what they're trying to go off of, as well as my dogs are now 15 months old.
Okay, I
weeks.
just noticed that on when you mentioned Arizona, I looked at it said Timberwolf.
Yeah,
I knew the dog didn't play in the NBA, so.
We tried. No, we noticed that too when the Humane Society officer, whatever they're called here,
Okay.
pointed it out. But like I said, pet tags say that.
Okay, well, at this point there again, I just wanted to give you an opportunity, since you did call our office, to, both sides to get it out in the open as far as the council is concerned, and also have the council give the council an opportunity to ask any questions. So at this point, if you could keep us informed on the appeal hearing, and
Absolutely.
guess we'll take it
I
from
do
there.
have one question though. Is a controlled animal the same as a dangerous animal? Because if we're specifying what a controlled animal is, isn't it dangerous inherently?
Sir, could you come up to the screen and record your?
Sure. So we have definitions in this ordinance that says something about a controlled animal as well as a dangerous animal. So if we're separating these definitions, a controlled animal would inherently be dangerous. Otherwise, why would we have to write out anything separate, from a controlled animal versus a regular animal?
Jenny, would you like to comment on that?
The Animal Control Ordinance for St. Joseph County does have two separate definitions for a dangerous animal versus a controlled animal. The controlled animal section is more specified for animals such as poisonous animals, apes, baboons, bears, monitor lizards, sharks, snow leopards, those type of animals.
She
and then
skipped
the
over
dangerous.
number 4, which
Hold on, sir, hold on.
I skipped over a lot, sir. There are
That's
24
fine.
different definitions there. However, the dangerous animal permit, or dangerous animal definition, defines any animal as being dangerous as any animal which has, off its owner's property, attacked another animal or livestock, which is the basis of why we've deemed this dog dangerous.
Thank you.
So,
Okay.
bulletin point number 4 says hybrids, so that's the part you skipped over,
Well,
as well as if we look at page 6 and we classify what a domestic animal is, clearly says a dog is a domestic animal.
But sir, I do believe, like you just said, the classification was based upon not so much the hybrid of the dog or the timber wolf, based more upon on his actions. Am I right?
The dangerous
The
animal
dangerous.
portion
That's what I'm
was
saying.
based upon the actions. The
Yeah, but-
controlled animal permit was based upon.
But I'm saying your
fact.
classification in this case was based upon what the dog,
For the dangerous animal designation,
Right.
it was.
That's
yes.
what I'm saying.
But the controlled animal designation was based upon the fact that the animals are wolf and wolf hybrids.
okay, and that's where, I think that's where the disagreement is coming in. So at this stage, I think we accomplished what we wanted to do. I wanted to make sure you had an opportunity, since you called the office again, so the full council would hear you out, and we could have conversation, and I think, next step is obviously the appeal, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay.
All right? Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. I do believe we have a group of people who would like to also take the privilege of the floor. Please, everyone who wants to speak, I just ask that you sign in and please keep it to 3 minutes. I don't want to be rude, but I will stop you at 3 minutes, so please have your statements prepared, so they will coincide with that time period. And I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. If you know that a person has already said what you're planning on saying, please don't come up and repeat it. I'm serious, okay? So with that said,
hello, my name is Jennifer Betts. I live at 23150 Roosevelt Road. I'm a member of the Environmental Network of Northern Indiana. How do we plan for flourishing? That is the question I would like the council members to consider this evening. My hope is that here in St. Joseph County, we will have a healthy, thriving, diverse, and biodiverse place for all of us to flourish together. It's hard to imagine exactly that kind of flourishing when we're starting to talk about 15,000 acres of an industrial megaplex development, which encompasses New Carlisle, Leidick, the toll road Route 2 from Route 20 west to LaPorte County. In the recently released Industrial Logistics Center project summary dated May 4th, I was so glad to see the goals of the economic development area are, and I quote, environmental conservation, livable communities, and full transparency. This is certainly a vision of sustainable development that we could work on together. While I am grateful for the outreach of the Economic Development Office to the members of the Environmental Network, I am here because you all are my elected officials. Ultimately, in the coming months and maybe years, the County Council will have a great deal of decision-making power over this mega planning process. So I am here to ask you to think carefully about the decisions you will be making. Part of being a citizen is holding elected officials accountable, always encouraging transparency, and continuously recentering the vision of the common good for people and the planet. Others tonight will speak more eloquently about the sensitivity of the aquifer, the fragility of wetlands, or the repercussions of building on floodplains. Others will talk about conceptions of development and how the environment, community, and public health need to be interdependent goals of development. Some may ask questions of fiscal responsibility, and others may ask about the process and transparency thus far. None of the questions are meant to be antagonistic. They are meant to create excellent governance in St. Joseph County and to ensure that we have a thriving community. Initial indicators point out at how complicated this process really is and should be. 15,000 acres is an enormous amount of land. Just to highlight, Potato Creek State Park, for example, is only 327 acres. I hope that we are still early in this process, as the May 4th summary report indicated, so that there is much time to craft an inclusive and intentional process, one that takes into account multiple communities and species and a long view in time. A process that isn't afraid to ask and answer the question, how do we create a place where all can flourish? Thank you.
thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President and council members. Thank you for your service. My name is Darsha Narvaez, 52633 Brookdale Drive, 46637. I'd like to speak about several of the goals of the 2002 Comprehensive Plan, which is the grounding for the master plan under consideration now. Goal 1 of the Comprehensive Plan was to alleviate and minimize the loss of agricultural land by maintaining 20-acre residential lot sizes, implementing farm preservation programs, and directing public utility investment away from areas of high agricultural importance. Given that the master plan today includes revisions to residential patterns in rural areas and is converting large areas of active farmland into industrial sites, how is the plan consistent with goal number 1? If this producing land, formerly prairie, is not regarded as being of high agricultural importance, is that an accurate evaluation? Goal 2 of the comprehensive plan was to ensure that suitable areas are available for future industrial development. Given that the plan called calls for 2 areas of 1,200 to 2,000 acres for heavy industry and 3 areas of 200 to 1,600 acres for light industry. How is a 15,000 acre megaplex sketched in the current plan consistent with this goal? Given that the 2002 plan prioritizes brownfield redevelopment for light industry, how is the current plan for extensive greenfield development consistent with Goal 2? Goal 4 of the comprehensive plan is to preserve and protect the natural environment by discouraging development in environmentally sensitive areas and by conserving open space and protecting natural and scenic resources. Given that the current plan seeks to replace open space with industrial sites and that its development area includes extensive wetlands and 2 ecologically and culturally significant county parks, how is the current plan consistent with Goal 4? Has the sensitivity of the area's aquifer been sufficiently accounted for in the proposed development's heavy use of groundwater? Has the impact of transfer of water from the Kankakee to the St. Joseph watersheds by sewage pumping been assessed? Goal 5 of the comprehensive plan is to provide utility services to support both existing and future residents and businesses by encouraging development in areas where infrastructure and urban services are available or where they can be easily provided, and by discouraging development where it's not continuous to existing developed areas, which would require significant extensions of water and sewer lines across underdeveloped tracts, unless paid for by the developer, and which would exceed the existing capacities of public facilities and infrastructure. Is that my cue?
Yes.
Okay. So as a concerned citizen, it seems to me the 2002 comprehensive plan reflected environmental and quality of life concerns, and it's not clear that the current plan does.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rachel Mazzini. I currently live at Kavanaugh Hall, Notre Dame, 46556. I am speaking on behalf of Krista Bailey, 945 21st Street, South Bend, Indiana. As the County Council looks west for opportunities to improve the quality of life for county residents, please consider growing sustainably for today and for the future. We want a resilient county that supports a healthy world, healthy environment, healthy economy, and a thriving and evolving culture. As ideas for development are considered, please remember that the overall goals of environmental and development are not in conflict but are the same: the improvement of the human quality of life now and for the future. Real improvements cannot occur unless strategies which are being formulated and implemented are ecologically sustainable over the long term, are consistent with the social values and institutions, and encourage grassroots participation in the development process. If we are trying to provide lasting and secure livelihoods that minimize resource depletion, environmental degradation, cultural disruption, and social instability, I encourage you to take a multifaceted approach that considers a cost-benefit analysis, resource accounting, macroeconomic policymaking, and sustainability applied research. There are professionals and concerned citizens in this county willing and able to assist if given the opportunity. We are here tonight to offer this perspective and encourage this opportunity to grow a resilient, thriving St. Joseph's County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Council, and thank you for your time this evening. My name is Connor Delaney. I currently live on campus at the University of Notre Dame at 135 Fisher Hall, Notre Dame, Indiana, 46556. I'm an engineering student at Notre Dame, and I'm speaking today because I'm concerned with sustainable development and how that applies to this plan. The land in question is on a sensitive aquifer, and this can be the basis of a healthy ecosystem. I would encourage the Council to know more about how the aquifer could relate to the greater ecosystem as the organisms and the microorganisms that live in this aquifer can really be the basis of the healthy ecosystem. We've seen how development can disrupt our ecosystem in the case of Juday Creek, where the development on Grape Road interrupted the temperature and the fish population of the creek. In closing, South Bend identifies as a 21st century city. I think a major part of identifying as a 21st century city is taking sustainability and green initiatives very seriously. So I think if we're to continue to be a 21st century city, we should take sustainable development and the green factors of this plan into serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Council. Thank you for your dedication to this. My name is Stephanie Storer. I'm at 2501 Miami Street here in South Bend. I'm a groundwater engineer and also a local business organizer, Common Goods Cooperative Grocery. And in light of that, I'd like to express concern for the development of this project in terms of the sensitivity of the groundwater aquifer and the local flora and fauna that could be it would definitely be in question here. I would like to see that there would be a sustainable development program and that this would be both the long-term effects of the aquifer would be taken into account, as well as any extreme events that could happen in terms of what's going on in this industrial complex be taken into account. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Gibbons Capdeville. I'm a professor at Notre Dame. I live at 511 Marquette Avenue in 46617. I'm attending tonight's meeting despite its being a serious inconvenience to my family for me to be away from home at dinner time when my other family members are doing other things, because the issue of environmentally sustainable development is vitally important to my family and as a big part of the reason that we have come here and stayed here as a family. My husband Matthew and I have 5 children, and when we moved to South Bend in 2009, many of our friends who were not from around here actually felt sorry for us. They mistakenly believed that this Rust Belt city couldn't be a very nice place to live. They talked about how the downtown was dirty and depressing and unsafe, full of boarded up old buildings, how sad it was that this once thriving community had been abandoned by the businesses that had once built it up, and how it didn't have the money to recover and people didn't care. But then we moved here, and instead of a sad, broken-down community, we found so many brilliant, active, forward-thinking, ethically-minded people in a place surrounded by rich, productive land with a beautiful river that you could actually take a boat on. It was a gorgeous place. And at the same time, it's a place that's strong and rooted, where people stay, and there's tradition and respect for diversity of thought, and we really appreciate that. We've connected our family with organizations like Good Shepherd Montessori School, Purple Porch, Kankakee Wetlands Organic Gardens, Bertrand Farm, Prairie Winds Nature Farm, Common Goods Food Co-op, Bike Michiana. These organizations and others like them are focused on using this land, using the outdoor resources here. And I want to say that these kinds of caring about the environment is a sign to people from outside of our community that this place is worth being in. It is a major attraction that this community cares about sustainability. For young professionals, for families, for innovators, creatives, investors, and educated and hardworking people, compassionate, conscientious people who have so much to contribute, that's what this place can offer. It's a sign that we have a secure and happy future, that we are a sustainable, environmentally sustainable community as well as economically so. So I'm here to just remind everyone that this is something that we absolutely must keep as an asset that people have worked so hard to develop, sustainability and care for the land. Not long after the publication of Laudato Si', which is Pope Francis's call to all Catholics to care for our common home, our parish opened up its own garden run by volunteers. And other friends worked to get chickens allowed in South Bend to promote local food sourcing. And I began taking my students at Notre Dame to local permaculture and organic farms so that I could show them and also learn with them about how to care for the land and how to educate the public in caring for the land. This is a major educational resource as well. So this place has been changing to embrace the richness of its agrarian tradition, and I think that we need to celebrate and responsibly use those resources. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Becca Mendez. I live at North Francis Street. I was formerly an environmental conservation volunteer in Paraguay, and I worked in a community that, like we are today, was trying to balance the need to protect important wetlands and water sources with the need for economic development. So I want to speak briefly about aquifers and talk about the importance of protecting our local groundwater sources. The St. Joseph County Health Department has prepared and posted to the county website a document called Wellhead Protection Areas, What Business Owners Need to Know. I'd like to read some of that document because it reminds us just how important our local groundwater sources are. It states, everyone in St. Joseph County obtains their drinking water from the abundant supplies of groundwater. The groundwater has historically been of very good quality. However, the decades of industrial and residential development that have allowed our community to prosper are challenging our ability to maintain the quality of our drinking water. New groundwater quality issues arise each year. All of the drinking water supplies in the county are susceptible to groundwater contamination, and it is critical to prevent them all. The northeastern part of the county is particularly susceptible to groundwater contamination. It contains the St. Joseph Sole Source Aquifer, which the U.S. EPA provides with a special level of protection. This is the only area in Indiana that receives that level of protection. End quote. Please note that it appears that at least some portion of the eastern extent of the NWILC project boundary map overlaps with our sole source aquifer. The health department brochure goes on to say that cleaning up groundwater once it becomes contaminated is not the answer to providing our drinking water quality, because cleanup is rarely successful and is always very costly. On average, it's 27 times more costly to clean up contamination than it is to prevent it. Preventing groundwater contamination is the key to maintaining our health and ensuring the county remains a desirable place to live and work, end quote. So in recognition of these realities, the county has previously adopted a wellhead protection ordinance. I noticed also that the NWILC proposes to use native plantings to filter stormwater. This indicates an intention to preserve and protect aquifer recharge zones and to focus on water conservation strategies for industry. However, when considering the scale of this proposed multi-industrial complex, is that enough? I ask you, the City Council, to please address the following questions as you make your decisions regarding this proposed project. Is some proportion of the proposed development area overlapping our sole source aquifer? Should it be? What risks does this development plan imply for our groundwater sources? How will these risks be minimized? I look forward to having these questions answered as the public stakeholder process for the NWILC project unfolds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Judith Rubleski of 515 South Mead Street. I'm going to be speaking about some of my thoughts on water and soil. Water replaces oil as the new currency in our world. Soil is nature's infrastructure for regenerating water in the sensitive aquifers located in the area being considered for industrial purposes. We have really good soil for growing nutritious food in much of this land in western St. Joseph County. Ecological growers in our county very much need tax abatements to help them afford the growing practices for regenerating their soil to improve the percentage of organic matter in soil, which is part of maintaining a good water cycle. My opinion, best use for much of this land is keeping nature's diversity in the wetland areas, care for the sensitive aquifer area, and in regenerative organic agriculture is the best use in much of this land. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, council members, my name is Dean Elvis. I live at 1411 Sunnymead. I'm a long-time South Bend, St. Joseph County resident, and I come as a member of Indivisible Indiana environmental team. Clean air, clean water, and healthy soil are essential for all human health and nutrition. A thriving community also needs resilience, which comes from a diversified and interconnected economy. St. Joseph County knows from its history the danger of excessive dependence on large industries that seem like permanent fixtures but are in fact transitory. 50 years after the collapse of Studebaker, South Bend is still here, and we're still dealing with the empty industrial buildings in brownfields awaiting redevelopment. 50 years into the future, will we again see huge empty factories, brownfields that are difficult to restore to productive landscape? Instead, we could retain current farmland that, if well managed, would still be providing food 100 years from today. To move forward toward a sustainable community, we need to bring healthy food back into our urban landscape, not pave over good farmland for industry, especially industry that will have to be replaced or transformed as we move toward a green, renewable energy economy. The huge natural gas plant will be obsolete in less than its 30-year projected lifetime. Will this facility be of any use to society as we move towards powering by wind and solar? Is there any plan for restoring the site when it closes? Also, the manufacture of cement and concrete must be transformed in the coming decades to eliminate its vast greenhouse gas emissions. Will the cement plant recently approved be able to adapt with new technology? To make our community sustainable, we should be asking planning questions that incorporate the whole life cycle of planned developments, from cradle to grave to rebirth of the formerly developed lands. The alternative is the slow destruction of our air, water, and soil resources, turning green fields into brown fields. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Carolina Serrano, and I live in Cottage Grove Avenue in the near northwest neighborhood. I am here to share with you a little bit about floodplain development. I would like to start by saying we are pleased to read in the May 4th NWILC project summary about the boundary adjustments to the core development area, which are intended to avoid much of the 100-year floodplain of the Kankakee River. This is a wise decision, we think. However, we look forward to hearing more from the project team about the full extent of future development within the proposed project boundary and how flood hazards will be mitigated going forward. Our impression is that significant portions of the full project area, especially those portions that may eventually extend all the way east towards the St. Joe Valley Parkway, will overlap floodplain areas designated by FEMA as some of the most volatile areas. Areas where flood insurance is mandatory and where flooding is likely to become ever more common. A recent study out of Purdue University and produced by an impressive collaborative team of scientists, including faculty at the University of Notre Dame, reported that since 1895, average annual precipitation in our region has increased by about 10%. This trend is expected to increase. And since 1900, the number of days per year with extreme rain, that is more than 0.86 inches a day, has been increasing at a rate of about 0.4 days per decade in the northwest part of Indiana. This is the fastest rate of increase in extreme rain events for any region in the state. It was only a little more than 2 months ago that we experienced firsthand the reality of these sobering statistics. Unfortunately, historic floods, like that so-called 500-year event of February 2018, may become more and more prevalent. I look forward to engaging with the NWILC project team to learn more about how they will account for the increased risk of flooding that is projected for our area. Changes to the natural wetland habitat are likely to exacerbate flooding issues. We hope that future development proceeds in a cautious and careful manner.
I ask you, the County Council, to remember floodplain development risks when considering all future decisions related to this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Andrew Tucker. I live at 127 South 34th Street, South Bend. I work for a nonprofit nature conservancy, and so the natural environment is how I often see my community. And I'd like tonight to say a few words about wetlands. But before I do, I'd like you to hear what the wetlands have to say, if I could. That's the spring peeper. It's one of our native chorus frogs. It lives in the wetlands in this area. It's one of many species that live in the wetlands of this area. Wetlands across our country protect 1/3 of endangered and threatened species, including many rare and threatened plant and animal species in our county. But supporting biodiversity is just one of the services that wetlands provide. They also naturally store and filter nutrients and sediments, which keeps our surface waters clean, which, as you've heard about some of our groundwater protection and aquifer issues, is incredibly important for our county. And they also protect our homes and businesses from floods by soaking up waters and then slowly releasing them back into the natural environment. Unfortunately, these wetlands have been disappearing at unfortunate rates. The Indiana DNR estimates that 85% of our wetlands have been lost in this state. So protecting our remaining wetlands and restoring what we do have is incredibly important. So I was pleased to read in the NWILC project summary that a mitigation strategy that prioritizes enhancement and conservation of wetlands is the goal. This is critical. Research over the past decade has shown us that wetland restoration, including compensatory mitigation, where a human-made wetland replaces a natural wetland, doesn't quite do the job. The reproduction is never as good as the original. These studies show that after 100 years, biodiversity is always, on average, 25% less than biodiversity in natural wetlands. And nutrient storage capacity and other ecosystem services also tend to be much worse. The relatively small and isolated wetlands that are prevalent in our county and in this project area are especially vulnerable, and they often never return to their original state. So I applaud the project team's efforts to be mindful of wetlands. I look forward to working with the project team as their public stakeholder process unfolds. But I ask you, as the county council who will be making decisions on this matter, to remember wetlands, remember the spring peeper, keep wetlands at the center of the decisions that you make going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Chuck Buter, 15893 Asheville Lane. As the county considers development, any development, please recognize there are significant implications for the night sky. I'm here to encourage sufficient but sensible light levels. I ask you to insist that all outdoor lighting be fully shielded with no glare, that outdoor LED fixtures have a color-correlated temperature, CCT, below 3000 K, and that decorative or uplighting be prohibited. Now, why should you care? Half of your life occurs from sunset to sunrise. Science recognizes that reckless lighting, while seemingly innocuous, impinges on the well-being of humans and the entire natural kingdom. Citing just one example, our new Indiana official state insect, just recently declared here last month, the Say's firefly, is best served with best lighting practices. To its credit, St. Joseph County already leads the region in installing fully shielded streetlights, such as at the new roundabouts like Fur Road and Brick Road intersection. A job well done. Thanks go to County Engineer Jessica Clark and her colleagues for choosing streetlights that are dark sky friendly and best for the driver. Regarding good lighting, I suggest you give the same high level of thought to the communities that will evolve in the new project area. Please mandate quality outdoor lighting. On April 8, I conducted an inaugural survey of the project area with sky quality meters, and the sky has values around 20 magnitudes per square arc second, whatever that is. But that's what's at risk of being lost, and I invite members of the public to participate in future sky quality surveys to measure the nightness, the night sky, and establish that baseline level where we are at right now. If you go out to the New Carlisle farmland, look around, you also see a lot of glare. That's kind of a big problem that's been allowed, despite it being somewhat prohibited in the existing regulations. And as the county moves forward, and I ask you to lessen the glare. Sustainable development requires that we think through all the impacts of development, including those like the night sky and nocturnal species that are often ignored. And I would be remiss not to say again, all LED lights throughout the county should be rated below 3,000 K. You'll see it right on the packaging. You should do it at home too. In conclusion, I appreciate your considering the night sky and future development across all of St. Joseph County. Please continue to lead in the right direction. These comments and supporting details can be found on my website, nightwise.org, under the blog post, 3 minutes of floor time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Durrell. I live at 21677 Auten Road. I moved here in 1990 from a beautiful area, and I have stayed because I found that this is a beautiful area. I like beautiful areas. And to me, a beautiful area includes lots of green and ready access to that. I like the woodlands, the wetlands, I like the wildlife. I like hearing the insects and the frogs, and I like seeing the stars at night. And for me, that's a quality life. And that has become as important as my employment, because this is what makes me happy. And so I am concerned at this point in time that we are at a critical turning point of eradicating some of that space that allows all of those things to exist. We all need a little bit of elbow room and a little pause every now and then to recoup and to coexist successfully. And building industry and concrete one after another over and over again between here and New Buffalo takes up that elbow room. And a friend and I did the hospice ride through this very area last summer, and we marveled at the amount of wildlife and the smells from the various orchards and the things that are growing over there. And we had quite an eventful ride, partly because of that. And I greatly value that, and I want to put a word forward to consider that this is an important part of our area for a lot of people with ready access. You know, you could move to a big city and a beautiful, dramatic countryside, but you have to drive 2 hours to get out of the city. And we have a nice balance of resources and weather and opportunities. We have local farms, we have local food. These are all things to keep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, council members. My name is Charlotte Wolf. I live at 21439 Osborne Road, Lakeville, Indiana. And I operate Prairie Winds Nature Farm, which is a nonprofit educational farm. My former life, I was a wetland scientist, so I understand a lot of the concerns that others have expressed about wetlands and protecting our aquifers. But I would also like the council to explore if there is any data available of how many farms are going to be affected. We estimate approximately 20 to 30 farms will be affected in the NWILC project area. I would like some answers about that. I also would like to know how many jobs will be created by the development process and what those will cost the county. I wonder if the data is available to mention how many farmers will be displaced and what incomes will be lost from those that are displaced. I'm also very concerned about the council, whether or not we are following any kind of comprehensive land ordinance, which I understand there was one for the council, for the county, developed in 2002. Does the council know anything about that land ordinance and how the current plans for this large project affect that? The specific type of development for the area was mentioned in an article about commodity agriculture, but I think the same concept could be applied to a large industrial development, and that is that if you can fail to imagine a new way forward for farmers, that's a big problem, because we need to have restore our fertility. Industrial agriculture has impacted our fertility in many areas. We need to use cover crops, and could the council consider investing the same amount of money that is going to be invested in this industrial complex to reestablishment of sustainable agriculture, if you will, new areas of orchards, perennial crops such as asparagus, season extension, growing hoop houses for annual vegetables, organic meat production, grass-fed meat production. What would be the number of jobs and spin-off businesses created? We have seen all over the country our rural areas becoming depopulated by creation of industrial agriculture and industrial complexes that another speaker mentioned are often transient. So I think that taxpayer dollars invested in farming and sustainable farming would be a lot better use of our dollars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council, for allowing us to speak this evening. My name is Larry Nicewonder. I live at 518 South 24th Street, which is in River Park in South Bend. I've lived there for about 40 years. I lived in South Bend for about 40 years, but I also spent the first 18 years of my life in Walkerton area. So I kind of have an urban-rural background, if you will. I want to speak a little bit about soil and agriculture. We need farmland. We depend upon farms for the food that is essential to human life. Today, May 9th, 2018, the American Farmland Trust released a major report, Farms Under Threat, the State of America's Farmland. The most comprehensive ever undertaken of America's agricultural lands, this report shows that between 1992 and 2012, the United States lost nearly 31 million acres of farmland. That's 175 acres an hour, or 3 acres every single minute. 11 million of those acres were among the best farmland in the nation, classified as the most productive, most versatile, and most resilient land. In 20 years, 3.5% of total agricultural land was lost. Development is occurring disproportionately on agricultural lands, with 62% of all development occurring on farmland. St. Joseph County, like much of Indiana, is blessed with large expanses of highly productive farmland. That long-standing priority was formalized in the 2002 Comprehensive Plan. Nevertheless, we are losing farmland at a much faster rate than the national average. The amount of farmland in St. Joseph County declined by 15% between 2007 and 2012, from 178,674 acres to 151,975 acres. Most of the land included in the 15,000-acre megaplex development area is currently farmland. If that were developed, the county's farmland would decline by another 10%. Once developed, agricultural lands, like wetlands, are permanently impaired. Farmland is in this respect a non-renewable resource. The rich soils that support farming are lost when land is developed, and it takes centuries or millennia for nature to rebuild them. With a relatively stable county population, it's clear that we are not losing farmland because we have to make room for more people. We are losing it because of development priorities. It's worth remembering just how much we have to lose. The Farmland Trust report reminds us, Cropland, pasture land, rangeland, and woodland support a regionally diverse food and farming system capable of ensuring domestic food security. Agricultural land contributes to state and local economies, supplies lucrative export markets, and bolsters the nation's balance of trade. These exceptional natural resources sustain valuable wildlife habitat, provide flood control and fire suppression, scenic views, and resources for hunting and fishing. This land also acts as an enormous carbon sink, drawing down carbon from the atmosphere, which helps combat climate change. By 2050, the demands on agriculture to provide sufficient food, fiber, and energy are expected to be 50 to 70% higher than they are now. I'm almost done. Given a limited land area in the United States and the need to feed and house an increasing number of people, it is more important than ever to protect the agricultural land and natural resources needed for long-term sustainability. In Indiana, we also know the cultural value of farms.
Sir.
Sorry. All right. I could go on. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Purikel. I live at 406 Parkavash Avenue here in South Bend. I've been here for about 16 months. I was living overseas for about 15 years in places like South Sudan, Sierra Leone, India, Myanmar. Proud to call South Bend home, working in areas such as food security, water sanitation, climate change adaptation, and governance, and learned very closely that for development to contribute to sustainable communities, the benefits of development need to flow to those communities that host and enable that development. Unfortunately, the economic arrangements for development often flow away from local communities to non-local business owners and shareholders so that the community does not share in the wealth it creates. Two features of the development currently happening raise concerns of this kind. So we'd like to bring questions to the council about the ways in which tax abatements and TIF districts are being used. Are tax abatements being used appropriately for job creation? It was reported in the South Bend Tribune on February 1st of this year that the natural gas electrical power plant recently constructed in the new Carlisle redevelopment area received a $60 million tax break, tax abatement over 15 years for creation of 21 full-time jobs. So at about $3 million per job, is this an effective use of county funds for job creation? Is this tax abatement consistent with the county's own tax abatement ordinance, which sets the criteria that link eligibility for tax abatements to benefits that a business brings to the community? Since the ordinance specifies a maximum tax abatement period of 10 years, on its face, the abatement seems not to be in conformity with this ordinance and may be further out of conformity if the conditions that permit tax abatements to be extended up to 10 years have not been met. In conditions where local government's abilities to fund the essential services they provide are tightly constrained by property tax caps, careful consideration of how much revenue can be sacrificed before development becomes counterproductive if necessary, is necessary. So, is the TIF district for the New Carlisle redevelopment area creating difficulties for New Carlisle, and should the use of TIF district funds in New Carlisle be given greater consideration? Because the industrial development in and near New Carlisle is located in a TIF district, New Carlisle gains no new tax revenues from development, even as New Carlisle is given responsibilities to invest public monies in infrastructure to support that development. For example, professional fire service that will be sufficient to address the fire risks created by large industrial sites. It was reported in the South Bend Tribune February 1st of this year that the power plant will bring about $43 million in property taxes over its 30-year lifespan, which will benefit the TIF district, which will support other projects they want to do. At the same time, that $1.5 million in revenue is coming into the TIF district. New Carlisle would need to pull money out of the school system to fund a new fire territory, and to pull about $112,000 out of the education school funds, and $1 million in TIF districts would have to be repurchased. Anyway, so money would be coming out of the school system. So we strongly encourage the county council to use its oversight of these kinds of development strategies to ensure that the practices for financing development bring wealth to communities that host it.
Hello, my name is Ricky Klee. I live at 2010 Hollywood Place, South Bend, Indiana. I'd like to continue my friend Tom's comments about how do we ensure that public monies go to the public. We've had TIF as a financing mechanism for a couple of decades now here in Indiana, and I think we've learned that it can have some benefits, but it also has some real problems. Just look locally. We have some of the highest rates of infant mortality in the country. We have some of the highest rates of childhood lead poisoning in the country. We had a physician last week who runs Beacon Health, Child Health Services program at Memorial Hospital, right, that he's seen in a number of neighborhoods around town, that he sees third world public health. And yet we do have TIF districts and in the city and the county that have millions and tens of millions of dollars in them, just sitting there while these problems fester. This is a challenge that we have to face when establishing TIF districts, especially when by county planning, we should prioritize the redevelopment of brownfields, not necessarily agricultural fields, given our industrial legacy here in this city and this county. Another potential problem with TIF districts is the use of these public monies by well-financed and well-connected businesses. We can see this in South Bend. How did the Redevelopment Commission, which is meant to address public blight, end up building luxury condos on the riverfront in the East Bank and in the old Studebaker building at the cost of over $10 million just in TIF funding alone? Somehow that happened. And I think you know as public servants how that might happen. This is a concern in establishing a TIF district for such a massive industrial complex in the county's west side. And lastly, let me say I'm the owner and player of the Grand Kankakee Wetlanders, a local baseball team. We beat Mike Hammond's team last season. And I named this team, I named this team because we don't have a whole lot of awareness about our wetlands here in this county. I grew up here. I never heard a word about them in school. Yet if you look at our history, the area where this proposal is being located is also the site of one of the world's largest wetland ecosystems historically, the Grand Kankakee Wetlands. It was almost 1 million acres in extent. And Kings of England, tourism was highly profitable here when those wetlands existed, but they were drained haphazardly and very suddenly, and we no longer have access to those sorts of benefits. But we haven't studied that either. And if you look back in the National Wildlife Fish Services, they actually want to partner with local leaders in restoring the Kankakee. And they've wanted to do that here, but they found no local leadership to do that with. So this could be a possibility too, to study before okaying this development, the possibilities for economic development with environmental restoration. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Sheila McCarthy. I live at 519 South St. Joseph Street. What we're asking for is greater transparency so that we don't have another situation of the Kankakee wetlands in the 21st century. Transparency, allowing others to view and understand what actions are being taken, is a foundational piece of democracy. It's only with transparency that citizens can hold elected officials and those they appoint accountable for actions taken that impact communities. This transparency allows for increased trust between community members and the officials who represent them. The planned mega-industrial complex seems to have more questions that need to be answered, such as, what is going on? What is being planned? When was I going to learn about this? And what would be my recourse? I drive along this corridor twice a week to Westville, and I see all the small farms with sheep, cows, horses. When green lands are lost, they're often lost forever. The questions that need to be answered are about how will we protect our aquifer, how will we keep our air clean, how will we protect the health of our citizens. A lot of the current county plans seem to be overlapping. What does this mega industrial complex have to do with what's happening at the airport? The ideas of the rail freight. What does this have to do with the South Shore rerouting? Well, we commend the monthly summaries for October through March of the consultant reports that were just posted this week. Summaries that the South Bend International Airport Logistics Project also posted, as well as the St. Joseph County Rail information posted. This information should have been made public as soon as it was available. County officials have a responsibility to us to connect the dots and help the public understand how is all of this related. How much money is each consulting firm being paid? What is the expected expense of this planning? Is that putting us into a bind where the planning process becomes too big to fail, so the county feels forced into decisions that may not be best for people's health, as well as our ecosystem? There may be perfectly good answers to these questions. Transparency is not only answering the questions for your constituents, but anticipating them, involving communities from the beginning so that trust is built and a better, more inclusive process happens. We look forward to increased transparency on these issues. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Badoon. I live at 19553 Darden Road in South Bend. And I want to thank you county council members for hearing us out tonight. As our elected representatives, the citizens of St. Joseph County are relying on you to protect us. As you contemplate the future of St. Joe County, I hope that you prioritize public health and clean environment over any business considerations. As public servants, you must all surely know by now that Indiana has a terrible pollution problem. Being a polluter-friendly state is expensive for governments. It takes a toll on public health and productivity. Please note that Indiana is currently 48th ranked for quality of life of all the states, 46th for air quality, and 44 for toxic chemical release. And this is per an April 19, 2018 Indy Star report. And there's one overriding reason why Indiana is so polluted, because we let it happen. Because our state government is happy enough to rely on EPA standards for pollution controls, while more thoughtful states implement much higher expectations for industrial development and management. And so the polluters come to Indiana. And they take only as much care to keep our water, soil, and air clean as the regulations demand. The statistics speak for themselves. We need to do better. 15,000 acres of poorly regulated industrial development will be a disaster for St. Joe County, and if you let it happen, we may never recover. I'm asking you to consider these wise words from environmentalist Ansel Adams. I brought a note. He said, "Once destroyed, nature's beauty cannot be repurchased at any price." He also said, "It is horrifying that we have to fight our own government to save the environment." We must protect our environment, and we need government officials that will fight with us, not against us. Today, we are seeing the Environmental Protection Agency being dismantled by polluter-friendly policies. Our natural places in our air and water are tragically and unforgivably being sacrificed for corporate profit. Our state government should step up to implement appropriate protections, but that is not likely when polluting developers are some of Indiana's biggest political donors. And so that leaves you, ladies and gentlemen. The St. Joseph County Common Council is our only defense. You have the authority to hold developers to a high standard, standards that prioritize public need over corporate greed. And make no mistake, developers are greedy. No developer is going to spend money or cut profit for environmental protections unless they are legally bound to do so. It is up to each of you to establish those regulations. And we, the concerned public, will partner with you in this process to ensure a beautiful county is clean and healthy community where our families can thrive. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for your time and attention this evening. My name is Carolyn Yves. I live at 1434 Marigold Way, number 116, South Bend, Indiana. I will graduate from the University of Notre Dame next week, and will continue my employment with the Notre Dame Global Adaptation Initiative through this summer. As a recent graduate considering making South Bend my permanent residence, I am very concerned about the impacts this megaplex development will have on this community. It is apparent that this county is attempting to find its character in a post-Rust Belt era, and I am pleased to see revitalization efforts underway throughout the county. We're beginning to emphasize the importance of open spaces like Elbel and the role of pedestrian and bike-friendly paths in creating a healthy and vibrant community. This kind of progress makes me excited about the prospect of calling St. Joseph my forever home. But while we are underway in redeveloping and redefining the character of St. Joseph in the 21st century, we cannot succumb to unchecked industrial sprawl. Rather, we must commit ourselves to well-planned and sustainable development that prioritizes livable, healthful communities and conservation of our most precious natural resources. As a county that struggles to retain college graduates, I think we all must look closely at what we are sacrificing. College graduates in 2018 are not interested in communities that do not protect open spaces, clean air, and water. I request that the county reflect on how this 15,000-acre development will impact the character of our county, and in turn the likeliness of young college graduates to make St. Joseph their forever home. Thank you.
Hello, Council. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Garrett Blad. I currently live at 925 North Francis Street. I graduated in 2015 from the University of Notre Dame with a degree in environmental science and sustainable policy. And I'm here to express my concern because this plot of land is where my family has lived for all of our time here in the United States. I grew up saddled between Potato Creek State Park in North Liberty and my family's dairy farm in Mill Creek, Indiana. My grandfather started this farm after he returned from serving in World War II, and it still operates today with the help of my cousins and uncles. My grandfather believed that a little hard work, perseverance, and well-timed rain meant that our family could thrive here in Northwest Indiana. And since I graduated Notre Dame, I've spent my time fighting for this place that I believe is so special. I have fought in the halls of the UN in Paris and Germany to fight for 100% renewable energy and a transition to clean energy around the world so that we can stop climate change and build a world that works for all of us. I've traveled across the country speaking in university halls and college and high school classrooms and community centers about the real risk that we face right now in this time in history, and the opportunity that we are also faced with to transition this economy and to fight for a world that supports the health and well-being of all of us. And most recently, my brother had a baby girl. He named her Stella, which is the name of my great-grandmother who came over here from Poland. It's kind of a beautiful reincarnation of life here. And that day that she was born on January 17th this year, I cried. I didn't expect to, but I cried. Partly of joy, because it's a beautiful thing, and partly of fear, because I believe that the world that Stella is born into is a world potentially of fear, of scarcity, of chaos, if we don't address the extreme environmental disaster that we are upon. And so right now, this council faces a choice. We can either turn our backs on our children, on the many concerns that this community has brought forth today, and continue to pollute our air, our land, our water, and rob our children of the beautiful resources that we have here in St. Joseph County. Or we can put our energy and investment into a sustainable, thriving, diverse economy, one that preserves and respects the natural resources we are so lucky to have here and that my family has depended on for decades, and build an economy that supports the health and well-being of all of us Hoosiers that call this place home. Thank you.
Excuse me. My name's Gary Harrington, and I live at 30387 Dunhill Crossing. I'm a foreigner from Jimtown now, after being a lifelong resident in South Bend. So I'll try to keep this short and sweet. Thank you for being patient. I work at Rum Village Nature Center as a naturalist, but I'm not here on behalf of the city, I'm here as my own citizen talking tonight, and just trying to give a perspective from an old guy who's been in this town for, I'm very old. Don't try to refute that. I've been here for a long, long time, lived in South Bend my whole life, and so there's not a lot of good things about becoming older, but you kind of see a lot of changes. I've seen the things that have come before, where we are now, and where we're going. And actually, I think there's good news tonight, and that is it's not too late to be on the right track. One of the things we're doing at Rum Village Nature Center is we are coming up with an ecological advocacy committee, and they're trying to advise us on the best practices when it comes to nature and wildlife in St. Joseph County. And one of the things I've seen since the time I was a little kid was lots and lots of change in St. Joseph County. I remember when there was nothing on Grape Road but farmland as far as you could see. And the only time people went to Grape Road is to take a shortcut from Grape Road by, say, Kmart all the way to 23. So I remember riding my bike all over around South Bend, and specifically around River Park where I grew up, and I saw lots and lots of farmland disappear. So I saw lots and lots of change there over those years. But the good thing is we can have growth in St. Joseph County. At the same time, we are setting aside sensitive lands. And in this particular case, if we have some lands that are particularly sensitive, we're not obligated to do that because somebody's telling us it's the best course of action. We can make that determination on our own. If there are better places for this, why should we not do that? So my suggestion would be to make sure you at least scrutinize this and know that we can have both A, economic prosperity, and B, be conscious of the environment. We can manage that successfully, and we can also have economic prosperity for the people of St. Joseph County. They do it very successfully in places like Portland, Oregon. Portland's a place that did everything right. Of the 92 counties, we can be on track for doing things the right way. And so I would just say, let that be in the back of your head. As we want growth and prosperity, who doesn't? Of course we do. But I would contend we can have both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Cobb, and I live at 215 East Pokagon Street, South Bend. And first, I really want to thank you deeply for the time that you've given to us this evening, and to affirm that we really value what you do. We really value it. If we didn't value you greatly, we wouldn't have imposed upon you and turned a short meeting for you into a long meeting for you tonight. What we're really bringing here is a call for good government, because we believe that you're a group of people who believe in good government and who practice it as best you can. And we recognize the value of local government to the well-being of our community. What we want to see for South Bend are broad-based benefits of public health, environmental health, and economic health. Those need close attention to community, broad participation in planning, and a long-term vision and follow-through to achieve. Those are things we've been talking about all through this evening. Sometimes that close attention is scientific and technical. Sometimes it involves following the money. We want to ask you to do both of those things. And so I want to stress a few things that we would really like to see from our process. The transparency that enables proactive responses. I want to emphasize that I got involved with talking to government officials around Elbel Park 2 years ago. And when we entered into that process, the first most anybody knew about that was, oh, we've got to sell Elbel. It's got to be done. This is the way it's going to go. Then when we slowed down and took a look, we discovered that there was a lot more value there than was realized, that it meant a lot more to the community than was known. And now we have a revitalized golf course. We have a natural area that we discovered. There were 200 people out at Elbel on Earth Day. The community cares about these things, and that wasn't known. I've been watching the South Shoreline rerouting. Last October, we're saying it's got to be at the airport. It's got to be done this way. That's the only way we're going to do it. We've got to move fast. And now, 9 months later, we've got a lot of information that suggests there's a lot more potential for economic benefit if the station is put somewhere else. We need to have a process that enables the consideration of multiple alternatives and not a process that enables somebody who sees a benefit that's more or less for themselves that then can be rammed through quickly to say we've got to do it this way. Think broadly, be transparent, open up the processes to the public. The 2002 comprehensive plan is a really fine comprehensive plan, and it involved a lot of work with the public to establish it. This master planning process now is equally important. It needs to be opened to the public hearings. We understand that those are now planned for this summer, and we're delighted for that, but also let's see some citizen surveys going on. Thank you for all that you do, and we encourage you to open up this process as much as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to take advantage of privilege to the floor tonight? Hearing none? No, Mr. Chairman. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't see you walking that way, sir.
My name is Dave Sharon, the fire marshal with Clay Fire, with offices at 18355 Watton Road. I intended to be at last month's meeting to bring you up to speed on the carbon monoxide ordinance that you people worked so hard on, because I wanted to apologize for failing to get that passed. Once it was denied, we were allowed to appeal. So I appealed, and then the appeal was denied. And then I was informed that I didn't have a right to appeal, even though the ordinance was mailed to me along with your legal people. They said that was just a courtesy. But I could appeal my appeals denial. And then the last week of March, when we were doing the last 5 days before that appeal would have to be in, I received a call from Mr. Boyle, who's the director of the commission, who said, you know, I just wanted to touch base with you because you're kind of running out of time to appeal your appeal for your denial. And I said, well, who looks at these? Well, the same commission that denies the ordinance also looks at your request for appeal, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So I asked him, I said, my thought is that I've already started to write this, and I owe it to all the people that we intended to protect. And he said, well, it's not really going to change. He said, now if you rewrite that ordinance so that you don't include all those people that you wanted to initially put and have it look like everyone else's that has come through here, then we can reconsider that. And I said, well, I'll be back, but it is not going to look like everybody else's, because I said, even though we didn't have 100% from the council on voting for it, it wasn't that they were against the idea of saving lives. It was they had some issues with parts of the ordinance. And I said, we wanted to reach the most people that we could, and that's what we intend to. And I said, we're not done. So I'm going to take the next few weeks to see if we can find a state legislator that's willing to next year maybe put something through that interjects the carbon monoxide alarms into the state smoke detector statute, because that covers all those people. And I had already thrown out some ideas to the folks at the commission to see what things we don't need to go through them for. So I appreciate all of your hard work, and again, I apologize for failing to get that through.
No apology needed. Thank you for all your help and your hard work. Is there anyone else? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? Here, second. All in favor? Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.